When did you realize your friends were actually fake friends? This friend, I'll call her Mary, had kids the same age as mine. We got together for play dates pretty often, and our kids would sleep over at each other's houses for weekends. I liked Mary. We would often visit and talk while our kids were playing. One weekend, her kids had stayed at my house. The older one called her mom to see when she was coming to pick her up. I was in the room, and the kid put the phone on speaker for some reason. Mary told the kid what time she would be there and added, "You'd better be waiting outside. If I have to go in and spend the next hour talking to River Tam, I'm going to be really mad." We didn't spend much time together after that. Did I overreact? Was Mary just having a bad day and not wanting to talk? And my personal favorite, River Tam, maybe you're just insufferable? Here's what happened after I overheard my friend say that to her child. I simply stopped initiating contact and wasn't as available to do stuff for her. When we dropped off or picked up the kids, I smiled and waved. I let the kids make the plans for playdates. I no longer had time to help her with her garden or watch our kids while she went out with another friend. They were into long-distance running, which is not my cup of tea. She never contacted me unless she wanted something. This had always been true, but I had not realized it. The friendship eventually fizzled out on its own, so I guess it had never been much of a friendship to begin with. I just didn't realize it until she opened my eyes. Kudos to that kid for putting the phone on speaker. That mom can't even raise her own kids to be just as bad as her. Story 2. Back in my first year of college, I used to have a group of friends, like 7 dudes with me included. We always hang out together and we're used to having this group chat where we discuss anything from class subjects to random things. After a year, I noticed that one of the guys, let's just call him Randy, keeps getting excluded. Not invited or informed to a group hangout while they're talking smack behind his back. The unofficial leader of the group actually made a whole new group chat, inviting everyone, myself included, except Randy without his knowledge. I know what it feels to be left out. I experienced that in middle school and it's really awful. I stopped hanging out with him and I started hanging out with Randy. He's quite eccentric, but a very good person at heart. We've been friends for more than 6 years and he still got my back. Story 3. I flew out to support a friend going through a messy divorce. While I was there, she left me in the apartment to meet up with her boyfriend that I didn't know about. It turned out to have just been released from prison. When she told me that, I told her I didn't want to spend time with him, especially considering the circumstances of my visit. The next night, I woke up in the middle of the night to find him in the living room. She said that she thought it wouldn't matter since I was asleep. The next day, she invited her soon-to-be ex-husband over without telling me, and then asked me to meditate in their conversation once he got there. That conversation turned ugly fast, and she ended up storming out. He broke down and asked if I thought I was salvageable, and I told him that she had already moved on. Maybe not the best idea on my part, but at that point, she had shown me how vile of a person she is. Honestly, she sounds like a mess. She's far better off distancing herself. Story 4. Like I suspect for a lot of people, getting divorced was a real eye-opener. It started with a core group of close friends who had all met in our late teens or early 20s, and one of them introduced me to the woman who I would ultimately marry. Well into our 40s, they were what I considered to be my family, but when the divorce happened, things spiraled. My best friend stuck with me, but his wife was the one who orchestrated things in our group, and she was best friends with my ex. I was expecting the two of them to insulate for a while, and I knew it was painful for my ex to be around me, so it was no surprise when I stopped getting invitations to cookouts, etc. But then I noticed that the other members of the group were also avoiding or ignoring me. I'd see on Facebook that one of them came into town to go to a concert for a band that they knew I liked. It hadn't so much as texted. Birthdays rolled around and nobody would call. When my parents both passed away within a few months of each other, and not one of them reached out. I knew where I stood. The best friend needs to get credit, though. Alone from all of them, he made a consistent effort to stay in touch and see me regularly. He was there when my parents passed away, and through everything else, even though his wife clearly disapproved. I think finally after this nonsense had been going on for several years, he told her how ridiculous it all seemed, and that entire friend group tried to reconcile. I made it clear right from the start that there was no guarantee that I'd ever find space for them in my life again. This is all very apropos right now because they're having their first big post-2020 party in a couple weeks and I'm invited. People are coming in from all over the country and the only one I care about seeing is my buddy. Nothing shows true friends like a divorce. Story 5. When I realized literally just being in the same room as that person made me miserable. It's because the person was extremely self-conscious, to the point that they would overcompensate by putting others down every little chance they had to make themselves feel above. They kept wondering why they would keep throwing me under the bus for no reason. Like we'd been friends for years, why would they treat me like this? It took me years to figure out exactly how bad of a friend they were, no matter how hard they pretend not to be. It took me an entire year of ghosting to stop being friends with that person. Because they loved putting me down so much, they wouldn't stop calling me, texting me, trying to contact me for a year with no responses, because they could not understand how someone could possibly want to stop hanging out with them because they're so perfect. Story 6. Accidentally doing too much substances and ending up in the hospital. I reached out and messaged those friends that said, message me if you need anything. And when I asked them to do something like feed my cat, check the mail, message my family who don't use the internet, or just talk to me, the response was, let me know if you need anything. It was as though saying that, I somehow ignored what I was telling them I needed. I learned people say this when they don't know what to say or don't want to actually do something. Like, here I am in a hospital bed asking you for that help you said I could ask for. I know that I've helped you, but now that I just need this rudimentary help while I'm being treated at the hospital, no one is there, not even family. I've gone out and visited friends, hosted events for them, helped them in many ways, and it can be for years. And yet if I ask to be visited or for help, there's nothing. Sometimes they won't even let me know they can't show up for things like my birthday until hours into the party starting time. Some people just want to piggyback you, dropping figurative social coins into you so that you show up for them, but they may never show up for you. I've spent years talking to someone, wondering what it would take for them to ever visit me. To have them literally show up once in over 5 years of a friendship. I feel like an idiot for having invested so much of myself, time, money, and genuine love to realize they do not want to invest even a fraction in reciprocation. We're friends for life now, some have said to me. We've shared deep things, but it's always in public chat groups and we never converse in private. I've learned some people know how to be empathetic and seem really caring, but often it seems all they really care about is a performative friendship, the sing and dance of a friendship. But when you genuinely want to talk and open up about a conflict, to really ask for help, to work through something, it's not what they're there for. They're there for the superficial and entertaining, and positive only. And the negative, whatever it may be, is not what they're there for. I don't know anymore what a real friendship is. I'm left really wondering if I'm the problem. The proverb, if everyone is the problem, then it's you, rings in my head. I must be the problem because every relationship has similar issues. Lack of genuine connection. If I start to open up and share genuine feelings, it's a burden. And most of the time, I'm just asking to be heard. Nothing more. And I really only do this when it feels like it could be accepted. I'm not opening up about relationships like this. You have to wait till rapport feels like it's acceptable to be vulnerable and authentic. But even when you do, there's the risk that you're not compatible. Or maybe I'm completely wrong and I have a massive issue I need to address that I'm just not seeing. I've been in therapy for a while and my consistent issue is that I'm emotionally confused about my own self. Story 7. I've had a couple of these, but the one that stung the most was my best friend who kept me around to feel good about herself. Things I didn't realize until she ghosted me after nearly 7 years of friendship. She always had a guy, a job she loved, and was constantly getting promoted, in a fancy apartment. I was always single, had a job I hated, and while my apartment was nice, it was nowhere near as nice as hers. I'm not complaining about my life. I was fine being single and was working on finding a good job. Fast forward to me getting in a very solid, serious relationship. We're now married, renting a nice house instead of a small apartment and having a really good and secure job. Add on to that, being medicated for anxiety, so I'm much happier now. The last time I spoke with her, we had made plans for her to visit me. When that day got closer, I texted her to see if she still planned on coming, and she never responded. Reached out to her a number of times over a couple of months. Nothing. From her perception, I was no longer the friend to feel sorry for. The friend you could compare yourself to and feel better about your life. Therefore, I was no longer needed. It broke my heart and took me months to get over. If you're enjoying the video, don't forget to hit that subscribe and like button for more videos like this. Story 8. When I got blackmailed to not hang out with my real friends, I was in my early 20s when I got a role in a local film. The film was never finished, thankfully, so our names won't be on it together. One of the actors in the film owned a business that I later worked for briefly. Let's call him W. When I worked for W, I met some awesome people who were also working for him. W paid all of us garbage, even the highly skilled employees that you don't find everywhere. He also talked down on us and would leave us the business to take care of while he took vacations several times a year. My friends at work had dreamed of starting their own business for a long time. We all were fired or quit around the same time and got the ball rolling of opening their own business, which would be direct competition with W's. W is close with the creator of the film we met on. Let's call the creator C. C and I have become very close too. As a young actress, C promised to introduce me to people and help me build my career. Time after time, C refused to get the work done needed to finish their own film. They also used me for a bunch of manual labor around their house. When my friend started making waves with their new business, C made me promise not to associate with him. Otherwise, C was going to tell their film friends, yes, they actually had some, not to work with me. All because C and W were close. I tried to tell C that W was a terrible boss and my friends have every right to start up and run a business. But C still wouldn't let go. I decided to say, who cares? Working on film sets is mostly creepy and everyone seems to think they own me. I had a few good times, but I don't think it's worth it anymore. After one final film day, I did my job and left the set as quickly as I could. I ghosted C after that. Blackmailing a core cast member of your unfinished film is probably not a smart idea anyway, so all the money C put into that film went down the drain. Because don't threaten me or my friends. Also, W's customer base liked me and my friends, so they followed us to their new business. W was out of business not long after. My friends and I are closer than ever, and I work for them part-time for good pay. Story 9. When a couple of my closest friends stopped talking to me when I got divorced from my husband, I finally stood up for myself in a loveless marriage where I did all the work and handled all the responsibilities around the house and kids, and later he even admitted to avoiding the house because it was too stressful. The tipping point being when he stopped doing his duties at work for 6 months and got a warning. Then he still didn't shape up and got fired 6 more months after that. I didn't know any of this was going on until he was fired. Then proceeded to lie to me for the next 6 months about working on new certifications for his industry, and I found out he was just messing around online. I lost any remaining love and respect for him after that. Oh, and I found out he made out with a coworker on an office trip to Vegas, but stopped himself when she invited him into her hotel room and they groped each other in the hallway. My one friend still isn't speaking to me because she thinks I should have stayed for the kids and to help my husband through his life crisis. The other friend and I are barely friends now, and she still says stuff like, "None of us knew how unhappy you were." And, "Oh well, that's the difference about us. I don't mind reminding my husband here and there. They know everything now, but still act like I'm the crazy person. I feel like all those years of supporting them when I finally needed it in return, they completely let me down. I didn't have my girlfriends to help me through my divorce. I felt alone and betrayed. Finally in a better place with my new fiancé, but that still hurts me to my core finding out my friends were really my friends. I called them sisters." Story 10. I had the same group of 3 friends since elementary school, but that was because I was very introverted and didn't make any other friends, so I stuck with them for 10 plus years. However, I was considered the weirdo of the group, constantly belittled. They would accidentally hit me or throw me down. Anyways, even in high school, I was the joke of the group. My life problems were brought up and laughed at, and at this point, I started distancing myself from all of them. Once we graduated high school, I told myself that I'll never speak to them again, which I did. Truthfully, I miss having a group of friends. I have no friends now, but I'm so glad I'm not friends with fake people who hurt me day in and out. Anyways, 4 years later, they still talk bad about me leaving their friend group because, apparently, I think I'm better than them. Lol, it's pretty ridiculous that they think they're entitled to my friendship when all they did was hurt me for years. Story 11. I got an apartment off campus and invited all of my friends to come visit. No one showed. And that same apartment burned down when I was in college and not one single person let me crash their couch while I got situated. I had to commute from my parents' home 2 hours for each day I had class, and I had classes daily, for over 4 months. Because apartments near the campus are on rental leases and it's hard to find an apartment mid-semester. The worst part about this is that I belong to a Christian organization and I would put in a lot of money, $40 to $50 for every time a friend was in need. Like, we would do actual collections to help others in our circle. I put in $50 once for a person whose mom had cancer. Meanwhile, for me, my home burns down and I lose everything, and those so-called Christians, all of them would go up to me the next day and say, "I heard your apartment burned down." And no follow-ups like, "Do you need anything?" or anything like that. For God's sakes, I was wearing Freddy Says Relax tee and raggedly sweats because I didn't have any clothes. Took out an emergency student loan, one of the worst periods of my life. One of my professors was kind. He let me borrow the book for the semester when he knew I had no money to buy extra items, because I was already on financial aid. Yep, That's how I found out. Story 12. Hindsight is 2020 with this situation, but I was very naive at the time. I'd just been broken up with and was feeling the lowest I'd felt in my life. I started going out with who I thought were my closest friends at the time, and we were getting hammered. This evolved over time to just smoking all the time at either my house or another one of the guys' houses. One day we decided to trip together at my house. My house because my mom was out, and they came over. After we had all taken it, one of the guys started being really weird and was hiding from us. We looked all over my house for him, and he texted us to say he'd got his grand to pick him up. Me and the other guys decided to go for a walk, then when we're passing my house, the guy that said he'd left hops over my fence, and we're all like, what in the world? I was getting in my head and feeling like I wanted them all to go. I started to realize that these guys were just using me for my house. I said I'd like them to go because I'm going to stay on my own. They were like, no man, let's go back to yours, it's fine. And I put my foot down and said, no, I'm going back on my own. The guy who was being weird walked past me and was like, get stuffed, man. And I just went home. I called one of my other friends, who's still my friend to this day, and asked if he could come up because I was having a bit of a hard time on my own. He came up and I felt so much better. Then I got a call from one of the guys that left, and I said to my other friend, I guarantee he's going to ask if I have some stuff. I pick up the phone and he's like, hey man, you all right? I'm like, yeah. And he's like, you got any stuff left? I was like, nah man. And it had solidified in my head that these guys were just using me. I stopped talking to those guys for a while, then I told one of them about how I felt, and he was like, nah man, you're my closest friend. Legit, like 2 weeks later, he was shitting my ex behind my back. And I called him out on it, and he was waffling about how he felt terrible, etc. I didn't speak to him for over a year, and he kept messaging me trying to say sorry. I eventually gave in because I was over it. Now that I've forgiven him, he has no interest in talking to me. He's a massive loser anyway, so it's worked out for the best. Trust your instincts on people. Story 13. I got convinced to go to homecoming without a date by my friends in my sophomore year of high school after getting ditched by my homecoming date freshman year. Everyone told me that going with friends would be a lot better than going with a date and that I would have way more fun than last time. So I decided to take a chance and go. The plan was to get dressed by a specific time, wait until my friends' parents come pick me up, go out for a nice dinner, then go to the homecoming dance. I got dressed at the time I was supposed to, let my friends know I was ready, and waited. For hours, I texted and called every single person that was a part of my homecoming group, letting them know I was ready, and not a single person responded. I remember sobbing about it in the backseat of my dad's car, who took me to McDonald's 30 minutes before the dance started because he felt bad and didn't want me to go hungry. After I ate, he drove me to the dance, and as I got out of the car and started walking towards the line to get into the building, still wiping tears from my eyes, I saw the same group I was supposed to be with right in front of me. I went up to them and asked why no one bothered to respond to my messages, and they pretty much responded with, oh, sorry, and split off from me the second we got inside the building. That was about 5 years ago, but I still remember it like it was yesterday. People are trash. Well, if you like these stories, here's more. YouTube thinks you're going to love this. Catch you in that video.